Hello, I'm Taylor Krauser.
And I'm Heather Hart, and today we're going to talk about The Last Judgment altarpiece by Rogier van der Weyden. This piece was created in France around 1444 to 1448, and it's oil on wood. It was commissioned by Nicholas Collin, Chancellor to the Duke of Burgundy. This piece is really beautiful, don't you think, Taylor?
It's so strong emotionally.
It really evokes a lot of emotional thoughts about, the ideas of heaven and hell, don't you think?
Oh, yes. This piece is really interesting because it just shows the traditional pattern of how artists depicted the Last Judgment scene. There's layers of heaven, earth, and hell.
Yeah, that's very interesting how artists tend to do that throughout this time period because, it's always very similar. All the pieces are, there's a distinct difference between heaven, earth, and hell, and it's always horizontal.
You can clearly see in the people's emotions.
Yeah, definitely. It there's a lot of symmetry going on here. It's very, good. So yeah, I guess they're blowing these trumpets, which wake up the dead, and then in the center of this piece, we see Christ at the top of a rainbow holding what looks like a lily. Doesn't that
a lily
stand
and a sword
for peace or something,
yes.
right? And the sword stands for, hell. And always in these figures, you will see that heaven is always on Christ's right side and hell is always on the left side. So that's very, thought-provoking in a way.
Yes, and very traditional of how it's usually depicted. In the middle of this altarpiece, you see Archangel Michael, and he's basically weighing the souls of the dead people to see where they're going to go.
Yeah, so you can see on the right side of this piece that the people who are condemned to hell are kind of, stumbling in. They're really, upset that they're going to hell, obviously, as we would all be. And they're kind of being, forced down, and they're pulling each other into, the fiery doom of hell. And on the left side, you can
just see them rejoicing.
Yeah,
they're so happy.
It's really great to see. It gives me some faith that heaven will be a great
especially for the people
place.
In the hospital.
Oh, that's true. We didn't bring up that point earlier. That the people who commissioned this work hung this up in a hospital so that the patients who are dying at the time would view it and have more of an urgency to begin repenting to their Savior so that they could go to heaven and they wouldn't have to undergo these really horrible sights of hell on the right side of the piece.
It's very weird. I can't imagine that being in a hospital.
Me neither. It's kind of horrible in a way, don't you think?
Yes, for sure.
Because you see the disciples and Mary and the king and the monk and John the Baptist up in the middle part here, and they're all very emotional, which is a very important part of this painting, which it was in this time period. Mm-hmm. All the artists made everybody very, very emotional in all of their works.
Yes, and when you look at Christ and Archangel Michael, they're actually pretty emotionless because, they have to stick with their decisions about the people and where they're going.
And then at the top left and right panels of this polyptych, you can see angels holding the cross and the crown of thorns and things like that that were used during his time of death. So it's all very emotional to look at. Yes, there's a lot to see here. There's a lot to really take in.
It's really just a beautiful piece.
It really
to look
is.
At.
It is. Makes me kind of look forward to this day.
The next piece we're going to talk about is The Last Judgment fresco by Michelangelo.
And this one's really different. Art historians compare this one to the Last Judgment altarpiece that we just went over. In contrast, this one isn't traditional in that it doesn't show, heaven, earth, and hell in a horizontal viewing. It kind of shows all three of these places in almost like a circle around Jesus, who's in the middle of the frame. And they compare this to beliefs at the time where people thought that maybe Jesus was the center of the universe, where he might have been the sun like Apollo, and that everything kind of orbited around him. So you can see in the bottom right that there are some figures that look like they have something to do with hell, and they kind of matriculate through the image up to the top, and they're kind of pulling down some of the figures that are next to Jesus, which might represent people that would be in heaven. So it's quite interesting to see. There's hundreds of figures in this portrait. There's a lot going on here
nice.
too.
Unlike the last piece, this piece is in the Sistine Chapel, and it was commissioned by Pope Paul III. Michelangelo was actually 60 when he painted this.
Wow, that's really old.
Yes, I know. And this, it just celebrates the creation of man and shows the second coming of Christ.
Yeah, and this one's really interesting too because originally all these figures were nude, and after the church enacted a law stating that there couldn't be any nudity in art anymore, they actually had another artist go back and, put clothes on all these people, which, kind of changes the outlook that you might have on it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it needed to be a lot more modest to be in a sacred place.
And you can see that in the middle of this portrait, you can see Jesus and Mary. And Mary seems to be the only figure in here that is fully clothed. And, she is like that in every piece of art at this time. She's never shown nude. It was very offensive to show Mary without clothing on.
Yeah, and you can really just see the fear of the people in this image. And even Madonna at his side seems to be just like cowering at the fear of what's going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of almost like fighting and chaos everywhere, like
very chaotic.
Everybody's just kind of trying to like hold on to heaven. People are gripping onto the crosses up in the top left of this portrait. They're just trying not to let go of Jesus in a way, and at the bottom, they're being pulled down, and almost if you look closer, the people on the bottom of this image are painted in a darker tint than the people at the top. Do you see that? It's kind of like grayish.
Yes, I do.
So I guess that just brings more attention to the theory that, there is a great gravitation towards Jesus, and that everything orbited around him, and that the closer you were to him, the better the life that you would have. You would be in the light, and if you were farther away from him, you would be in the dark, and you would be consumed by hell. My favorite person is this guy to the bottom right of Jesus. It looks as though he ripped his skin off. It's kind of interesting looking. It's like a wax figure. It's very, very weird.
Almost as if his own skin is melting.
Yeah, and I guess that shows, it looks like he took off his skin and he's about to drop his old skin into hell, and he's a new person remaining in heaven with Jesus. So it's very symbolic of the beliefs of the time.